Good evening. Welcome to the April 19, 2022 Education and Pupil Services Committee in-person and virtual meeting. Before we call tonight's meeting to order, Dr. McGarry, will you please outline the public participation procedures, please, sir?
Yes, good evening, everybody here who's with us in person. Always good to see you. I hope you had a nice break. And to the public joining us virtually, there are three different opportunities for you to participate in this evening's committee meetings. First, it's important that tonight is a back and forth where we will answer questions based on specific agenda items. So when you comment or question anything, please be sure, no matter what I say tonight, that you specifically focus on what agenda item from which report you would like us to answer any questions on. So first, anyone who would like to phone in a comment, it's 610-789-7200. Again, 610-789-7200, extension 2000. Please provide your name, address, and again, the specific report and agenda you'd like to comment on or question. The board will certainly read that and take that into consideration before taking any consensus moving forward with any topic this evening. They will also direct it to an administrator if a board member does not feel that they could answer the question. You can also send an email to committeequestions@upperdarbysd.org. Again, committeequestions@upperdarbysd.org. Please provide your name, your address, and the specific report or agenda item you'd like to comment on this evening, and the board will obviously take that into consideration before moving forward. Those who are attending in person will always have the opportunity to go first per our board policy. After the board has public back and forth on the agenda items and all the agenda items are covered, we will open it up to public questions. Those in attendance, please come to the microphone, state your name, your address, and the specific agenda item on each report that you'd like to comment on or question, and we will obviously go back and forth and provide you the best answers we can. That's the process for this evening. Board President Brown, happy to review it again as we transition from one meeting to the next.
Thank you. You're one step ahead of me. I was going to ask you to revisit that later, but you will. Thanks. The meeting of the Education and Pupil Services Committee will please come to order. Roll call, Board Secretary, Mr. Rogers, please.
Dr. Haig?
Present.
Mr. Desnoyers?
Present.
Mr. Neal? Mr. Warsavage?
Present.
Ms. Lamar Murphy?
Present.
Ms. Williams?
Present.
Ms. Mitchell?
Present.
Mr. Fields?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Present. Thank you. The district posted this evening's agenda to board docs at least 24 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting. Is there a motion to approve that previously posted agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The agenda has been moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to offer?
No, there are no amendments.
Thank you. The agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. The motion carried. I will now turn over the Education and Pupil Services Committee agenda to co-chair Mrs. Williams, Director Williams.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Marshallek, please begin with an overview of your agenda items for this evening, and you can just begin from there.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have two agenda items on the Education and Pupil Services Committee. The first item is learning loss district programs that we are offering our students. This is an informational item. It has two parts. One, the after-school tutoring part, which is informational, and also the summer programming that we are offering, which is also informational. The second item is our dual enrollment credit cap and staffing presentation. This will require board action at the May 10th board meeting. I'm going to get right into the first item, which is the learning loss overview of student programs. So tonight's presentation will provide the board and the public with an overview of how we are using or how we are supporting our students coming out of the pandemic. The two programs I will highlight tonight are funded by the American Rescue Plan. Last month during the Finance and Operations meeting, Mr. Rogers explained the money that the district has been awarded, and tonight I will use this presentation to show you how those funds are actually supporting our students. So the first one is our after-school tutoring program. And before I even get started with showing you any more than this, I have to give a special thanks to our two coordinators that have really helped bring this program together. So Stacy Barnes ran our elementary program as the coordinator, and Anna Marie DeLassi really took on the secondary piece of this program, and were able to communicate with our parents, our students, our teachers throughout all of the marking periods that we were able to run this. So I wouldn't be able to have this presentation ready for you tonight without highlighting the tremendous amount of work that went into it from both of those people. So to give you some highlights of the elementary program, we were able to offer 3 sessions. The third session right now is currently meeting, but the first 2 sessions, the first session was offered during marking period 2, and the second session was offered through marking period 3. And those sessions, as you will see, we were able to service about 300 elementary students, anywhere from kindergarten through 5th grade. 45 teachers were participating in session 1. And what we did during those programs are we set goals with those students, and through those 9 weeks that they were working with the teachers, 80% of those students were able to make goals or progress towards those goals that the teachers set with the students. They communicated with the parents frequently, and these were all virtual sessions during session 1 during those months, especially during that time period in December as we were getting closer to the break where we saw that uptick in COVID-related cases, that we did keep that program virtual. As we transitioned into session 2, which is marking period 3, I know it's a little bit confusing, but during marking period 3, which ran from January until March, 360 of our elementary students did participate. This was a different group of students. When we first put out the survey, we had a tremendous amount of students or parents reach out saying, please, we would like our students to get tutoring. We had over 1,000. What we were able to do is break them up into 3 sessions. Finally, during the third session, which we are currently running right now, some in person and some virtual, we were able to gather that last group of 300 students, and some students that attended session 1 and session 2 were also able to come back for another session because they were being supported and their parents did reach out. So our teachers have been a tremendous help. Some of them have taken up to 2 or 3 tutoring groups to support our students. So as you see, the number of teachers decrease, but the number of students stay the same. It's because our teachers were taking additional groups. So they're the highlights of our elementary program. As we transition into our secondary program, the secondary program worked a little bit different, and we offered virtual homework help. So students were able to drop in 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and get support in the following areas. So we did all the core subject areas. We did world languages, study skills, technology. Again, we had about 16 consistent teachers that would log on from 5 to 6 and then 7 to 8. And they were able to help the students that joined in. As you can see, we've had a tremendous jump in session 2 to 409 children that really started to take advantage of the program that we were offering. So they would log on. We saw a big jump in our science program, or the science help that we were offering, as well as the world languages. And we continued to run all of them, but they were the 2 big ones that we saw the jumps in. Again, 16 teachers that were able to provide that support. And all of this work for these tutoring programs would not have been feasible without the teachers really stepping up and giving, extra, even at nighttime, to offer our students what they needed. So as I transition to the other programs that we are running, similar to last year, we will be offering multiple academic and enrichment summer programs for our students in grades K through 12. Before I begin explaining these programs to you, the district supervisors, like last year, really stepped up and really have been organizing and helping to make these programs possible. With the advertising, the communicating, Aranda and her team have been wonderful about pushing out information constantly for these programs, so much so that right now our K through 5 program is at capacity. We can't fit any more students. So we have So let me get to the next slide. We have 561 students right now enrolled. We don't have enough teachers right now to offer it to any more. But even today, we had 2 more teachers apply. So as more teachers apply, I can get more students in. So right now, K through 5 Summer Academy is closed, but I'm hoping that we can start to offer that again or start to reach out to some of those families that are on our waiting list. But we do have a tremendous amount of children that would like to come in and take advantage of this program. Additional opportunities that we are offering at the elementary level are all of the elementary students will participate in music and art classes. So Mr. Lashley has been really reaching out and organizing what music and art can look like in the summer with those students. And the kindergarten program is also being offered to those pre-K students, similar to what we did last year. We have 31 pre-K kids, so will be ours in kindergarten for the 22-23 school year. That are already going to be in our schools, ready to get some support and ready to enter into our kindergarten program. The last piece, similar to what we did last year with the Camp Invention, we were able to expand this a little bit. Last year we offered 40 seats. This year we're offering 60 seats. This is a shorter program, but the teachers are being trained right now, and the students will participate in those STEM activities for 2 straight weeks for our elementary students. So there are elementary offerings. As I transition to the middle school, the ramp-up program, so gearing up for the incoming middle school students. Again, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from June until July. This is where we need a little bit more business. So we have about 140 students here. I have plenty of teachers to support the students. So this will stay open, the registration, until the end of April. So I'm hoping to get a few more students involved here. And the programs will look like this. There'll be 45 minutes for each of the subject areas, ELA and reading, math, and related arts. Like I said, registration is currently open, and we have many seats available, and will close April 29th. We are offering additional programs here for visual arts, instrumental, and chorus, and they're the programs that Mr. Lashley is organizing right now with his team so that we can get students involved in the fine arts programs. Lastly, we have the high school credit recovery program. This one's a little bit tricky because we have to wait until we get closer to the end of the school year to actually know who needs the credit recovery, who needs those supports in those classes once the final grades are posted. So as we get closer to the end of the school year, information will be coming out through the high school counseling staff. I know that Mr. Finch will be sending out information as well about what those classes will look like and how to register if you are in need of credit recovery. I'm going to turn this over right now to Mr. Marshallak, who is going to review the other 2 programs that we are offering during the summer.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. So the next one is extended school year services, and again, this is a provision of the IEP and special education for free and appropriate public education. Students are provided anytime during any break during the typical school year is when ESY can be provided to students. It's a very unique and specific program. Students must qualify through the IEP process for areas of need that they have made lack of progress or did not recruit progress over a period of a break, such as winter break or spring break. We're currently identifying many of the students right now. We're about 500 students who have been identified needing ESY services to this point. The dates run from June 28th through July 28th, but depending upon what area the students need has been identified, will determine what day of the week they go and how often they go during the time of the day. It's going to run typically from similar time frames, 8 to 11:30, Monday through Thursday. But again, those time frames from late June to late July. And students' IEP teams will let parents know what days of the week they do need to come to ESY. If transportation is provided for those who do need it. And it gets all communicated through the special department and IEP teams. The next slide is our English learning program. So the English Learner Summer School will be open to all current ELs in the district in grades K through 11th grade. Again, it's similar time frame, June 22nd to July 28th. Similar time frames as well during the day, elementary and secondary students. And again, topics are covered specific to English learning, language proficiency levels, focus on benchmarks, and of course, any differentiation the students need during that summer break to help them ramp up. That's it for the special programs.
Are there any questions about the two programs that we are offering, or a few programs that we are offering right now or during the summer?
Awesome presentation. I just had two quick questions. One of them was, in the beginning of the presentation, I saw that for the elementary tutoring program you had for session 1 and 2, approximately 80% of the students made progress toward their goal. I was wondering if for the secondary tutoring program, there is similar data in terms of, however many of them reach their goals. The second question that I had was, do we have any feedback from students or families who participated in the program who were perhaps apprehensive in the beginning but grew to embrace and really love it? Because if such feedback exists, I think that would be really encouraging for a lot of the families listening right now to hear, to kind of, if you're on the edge, this is an opportunity worth taking.
So to answer your first question, because the secondary program was a little bit different, that they weren't setting an exact goal, they were dropping in for the help in their classes, we would see it in their grades, hopefully the increase in grades. I will tell you that we had I believe a 7th grade student reach out and was like, I was so ready to take my math test today. So those kind of little stories, the teacher did forward it to my team. So those little pieces we have heard, like I was really ready to take my test or my quiz today, or I felt great when I walked in class. So we've had stories from the secondary students, but we don't have data that we've been tracking like we were able to with the elementary students, because the students that are coming in during the secondary virtual tutoring has been very fluid. So it wasn't like they had to attend every day or every Tuesday and Thursday. They jumped in when they did need that support. More. I will tell you this, during this third session that is currently running right now, we are conflicting with sports a little bit more. And so we had to change the time a little bit more for this third session, but it has been working out still. Okay. To your other question about parent feedback and things like that, we have been or we're planning on doing some kind of survey to see how we can improve it, because we do have funding to continue this in the next few years. I do know that I did have a parent just recently reach out and was very pleased with the feedback. The student was really seeing progress in their reading and everything else, and felt very comfortable going back into school. So that was nice to hear as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, and all of the teachers who participated. I really appreciate everyone putting in all this extra work and time. You mentioned that the session 3, you were getting, for the elementary program, that you were getting the students who were sort of on a waiting list before. Does that mean at this point, at least between the 3 sessions, everyone who expressed interest was able to participate?
Yes, exactly. And we were able to offer any student that wanted, like the parents that did reach out and said, I would love if you could get them back in, we were able to get them back in as well.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say that this is awesome that we can offer these all these programs. I'd also like to, similar to Meredith, offer a huge thank you to the teachers who are able to help with this, because after the stress they've been under for the last 2 years, I can imagine like many teachers are like looking forward to, taking some time off. So I can understand it's a really big ask to ask teachers to go beyond. So thank you to everyone.
Just have one question. What are the requirements for teachers? So if a teacher is onboarded, being onboarded now, or will be joining us in the fall, are they allowed to teach summer school programs?
So right now, we do have a few openings, and it was posted externally. So I am in the process now of interviewing people to provide help during the summer program. So I'm working on that right now, and I will continue to work on that and start to interview some people to fill in some of those spots so that I can get more students in past that 561. Thank you. You're welcome.
I just want to say to Ms. Lamar Murphy, Board Member Lamar Murphy's comment, when we met in this room to put this plan together, Christine, it's really awesome to see Dr. Kelly where it is today, because we met with administrators, principals, supervisors, because there was a kind of a mad rush when we weren't so sure what the money was going to look like and how we were going to get it. We had a whole meeting in this room to kind of plan what it is. So there's a very different concept, elementary, middle, and high school. High school is more geared towards, are we going to get high school kids out to get extra help? It's good to see that it's picking up as they're aware of the tutoring sessions that are there. The staffing implications, to Board Member Neil Desnoy, is your comment. Early on, historically, we struggle to get enough staff and students engaged in summer school. So one, we're now getting kids engaged. We've historically struggled with staff. One of the things that we had to do with the ESSER funding was increase the hourly rate. So that would encourage more people. So when Dr. Kelly came to my office and said, look, now we're getting kids, what about the staff? I said, let's push it out to anybody. So we'll offer it to our own teachers first. But if we can't get our own teachers to do it, I'm sure there's a lot of people I know early in my career, I would take $55 an hour and come and tutor. I taught summer school the entire time. So the concept is, okay, let's open it up to others on board that staff so we can make sure that we don't leave any kid out with this opportunity. But what you guys have put together, Christine and the team, is just, it's awesome to see. We have two more summers, one more summer of being able to provide on this level.
We do. We have 2 more summers, so we have 2 more summers up to the 2024. We do have the ability. We also were able to hire for the tutoring program some of our student teachers, which was great because they were still working alongside their cooperating teacher. They were able to come in and get that extra, exposure to students in a small group as well. So it's been great.
This is great. Thank you very much. The middle school program for the summer, I'm just curious how it's pitched. Is it pitched as a summer school or as a get sharp, stay sharp kind of program? Is that difference? Do you know what I mean by that difference? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we tried to avoid the word summer school throughout all of this. We really did summer ramp up. We did summer academy, which Dr. McGarry loves. We geared it to arts and academics. So we really tried to get rid of the words summer school because it usually means you're in trouble or you have to go to school during the summer because you didn't do something right. Exactly. So we've been really gearing up students. You'll get exposure to what you need for your 7th grade, your 8th grade experience. And that's what we've done. We did it last year, and we'll continue to do that this year.
Okay. And then I guess the attendance requirements. So is it meet every day or miss so many?
So it is offered Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for about 5 weeks, from 8:30 to 11:30. We do realize that people do travel and try to take a break also. And so we take attendance and we see who's there. Many times parents reach out to the teacher and say, we are going to be away for the next 2 weeks or the next week, so we won't be there. It's fine. And we've communicated that. The teachers at the middle school level have been wonderful about pushing this information out to their students right now, and the 5th grade students as well. But we track attendance just so we know who we are helping, but it's not counted against them at all.
Okay, great. And I did want to say about the secondary tutoring program. My household had a participant in that program for a few weeks. It definitely got him over a hump that he was stuck on for a little bit there, and I kind of had to sit there and get him to log on. But other than that, it was pretty successful. It helped him a lot, and I do appreciate the staff that runs that and supports that. It's just not enough appreciation that I can state. So thanks a lot.
Do the teachers, I guess they're really thrilled with this because there's a normal summer slide that takes place when kids are, when they have those months off, and this kind of bridges the gap. So are the teachers really thrilled, and is that an extra incentive for them to help avoid that by volunteering and being a part of it?
I believe so. A few years, I want to say it was about 5, maybe 6 years ago now, we put in a summer program for that very reason. We figured out how through our district funds to make that happen, and we offered it to K1 and 2 at the very beginning. This funding right now we're able to expand it much, much greater than that. And prior to that, there was always a cost associated with middle school and high school students. And now, because of the funding that we are receiving, we are able to offer it a little bit differently, but to help support our students. So I do think that that is part of it, that teachers know like this is helping our students.
Okay, and I do see that transportation is not a part of it, but do you get a lot of people that say, I would love to take a part in it, but transportation is a barrier for me?
Transportation wasn't part of our old program,
Okay.
so it has not been a barrier. We really keep it to neighborhood schools, so Charles Kelly is not going to Charles Kelly, Senko is not going to Senko. We're using our neighborhood schools, and we haven't had any problems with transportation. Occasionally, we have a little bit of problems with a pickup. Maybe, somebody's running late or something like that, which I think we can all, appreciate. We all know it happens. And we do have teachers that remain an extra 15 minutes past the time that they're allotted. We compensate them for that, so in case those late pickups and things like that. So all of those little hiccups that we experienced for the past few years, we have really put things in place that those things aren't happening anymore.
Thank you for your excellent work on this.
You're
You and your
welcome.
entire team. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, I did think of a question, an actual question. For the secondary program, not that I need hard figures, but like, what's your estimation of the breakdown when you look at number of DH students participating and number of BH students participating? Is it like in the ballpark of being equal?
I don't know if I have that number in front of me, but I could definitely get that to you. I have total numbers for middle
Okay,
school and
okay,
high
so-
school. I do
okay,
not
okay.
have it broken down by schools.
Okay, if you want to send it, email me,
Absolutely.
like tomorrow or whenever,
Okay.
that's fine.
Not a
Thanks.
problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One final comment. I think it's awesome, too, that what we heard during the pandemic for the, year and a half to 2 years that it was going on is that, especially from some of our now retired high school music teacher, that there was students who just struggled to engage as much. So Chris Lashley, shout out to him and to Christine, since we brought our music supervisor on, there is a loss in some of those key areas. And so in band and orchestra and some of those not able to participate because they couldn't play their instruments or sing in school necessarily during some parts of the pandemic, we wanted to make sure that we were giving those kids the standards and the academic support in these programs. So we've gone from not just reading, writing, and math, but also offering art, visual art, and instrumental music and music to help those kids re-engage, to rebuild some of our programs that we were hearing were sliding as a result of the program because the kids could not participate. So I know there's been a lot of conversation. I've received some phone calls about this. We are simply trying to bridge the gap in some of the learning loss with kids. We're not trying to compete with any other outside program. We're literally trying to do our due diligence to give our students what they may have lost during the pandemic.
We can move on to agenda item number 2.
Okay, I'm going to transition out, and Dr. Manfrey is going to take my place.
Good evening, Board President Brown, members of the board, Dr. McGarry, administrative team, members of the Upper Darby community. I'm here this evening with Principal Kelly Simone, directly to my right. Ms. Sarah Czar, one of our 11th grade counselors. Thank you so much for being here and giving up your time for us this evening. And of course, Mr. James Finch, who is Upper Darby High School's assistant principal for operations and schedules this monster of a building, Upper Darby High School. And so we appreciate the work that you do, James. We're here this evening to discuss staffing concerns at Upper Darby High School and our attempt to address those staffing concerns. As you know from previous presentations and superintendent's reports, the latest presentation being Dr. Council's presentation about the national and state staffing crisis that our country is experiencing. Unfortunately, the Upper Darby School District has been and will not be, has been part of that staffing crisis and will not be immune to that crisis anytime soon as a school district, but in particular at Upper Darby High School. As we continue to develop plans for a balanced budget through Mr. Rogers' office and the business department, and continue to keep at the forefront of our minds the needs of our students, it is evident to us that a plan is that we need a plan as quickly as we can possibly develop one. As a reminder, we did hire a consultant to audit our high school schedule through ESSER funds. We appreciate the board giving us permission to do so. And we anticipate being able to provide the board and the public a report on that audit in the near future. However, this crisis called for immediate action, especially considering that Upper Darby High School is now in the midst of scheduling. But we further anticipate that the audit will not be in conflict with what is presented to you this evening. So with that, I'll move on to the agenda. This evening, we'll be talking about staffing, the process that brought us understaffing, the process that brought us here this evening, the impact on course offerings, and as you can see, I don't want to read all of those bullets to you, but there are sections this evening of the presentation: staffing, credits, dual enrollment, and then considerations and conclusions. Dual enrollment being of the most forefront of our mind in terms of addressing the staffing crisis here at Upper Darby High School. Staffing concerns. It's important for us to prioritize staffing in courses needed to satisfy Chapter 4 and local graduation requirements. That includes the accumulation of 21 credits or courses. Through our scheduling process, we will make every attempt through the proper use of staff to have balanced class sizes, keeping in mind the class size minimum of 25 outlined in the course selection guide. As we do this, it is important for everyone to keep in mind that we cannot and will not schedule students in classes that do not have certified teachers already hired and assigned to them. Traditionally, as a reminder, hard-to-fill positions include positions such as family and consumer science, tech ed, world languages, and some math and science electives. I'm sure there are others that I'm missing. Having open full-time equivalencies, or FTEs, will set off a chain reaction that includes using money from those open positions to help fund our dual enrollment program at Upper Darby High School, which is what you're going to hear about this evening. Essentially, if we were unable to fill these positions by the end of July, let's say, we will be counseling students to enroll in our dual enrollment program and using the money from those vacant FTEs to pay for that. As a reminder, we have an agreement with Delaware County Community College which allows our qualified students, of which I believe we have we're estimating 290 to 300 students currently, our qualified students to register for courses at the Delaware County Community College. Dr. McGarry and I found out earlier this afternoon that the registration deadline for Delaware County Community College is August 24th. So that will give our students plenty of time between the middle of July and the end of August to register for those courses. The process. Central office held meetings with the counseling department here at Upper Darby High School and the administrative team on March 30th and April 8th to review our staffing concerns with the team and get feedback from the team. Central office reviewed the courses and the credits, and then we provided Upper Darby High School's administrative team and school counseling department the time to process and wrap their heads around the staffing crisis as we see it and how they can help brainstorm ideas on moving forward here at Upper Darby High School. And with that, I will turn it over to Principal Simone.
Thank you, Dr. Manfrey, and good evening, everyone. As Dr. Manfrey stated, the high school administrative team met with the school counseling department to process the staffing obstacles and take the opportunity to provide suggestions and considerations to combat the staffing dilemmas we continue to face. The team met and discussed the following. Students are currently scheduled to accumulate the state requirement of 21 course credit as a priority to provide the opportunity to accept their diploma after their junior year of high school if they so choose. We also held conversations about allowing students to meet the required 21 credit minimum spread across the 4 years of high school. The credit accumulation would be the minimum 21 course credit threshold, but students would accept their diploma at the culmination of their 4 academic school years. We not only discussed the benefits of dual enrollment opportunities, but potentially requiring students choosing to accumulate credits beyond the 21 course credit minimum to participate in dual enrollment. We discussed the ability to issue a diploma to students that meet the 21 course credit threshold, but do not meet behavioral expectations as outlined in our Code of Character. We agree that some students are eager to complete the necessary graduation requirements, both local and state, before the 4th year of high school, but fail to do so without additional support. The team discussed creating a distinct pathway for students needing enhanced help. We discussed variations of capping course credit for students choosing to accumulate more than the state-required minimum, such as implementing a 26 or 28 course credit limit. One of the concerns discussed by the high school team pertained to the student's ability to drop courses and make preferential changes. The more we allow students to make preferential changes or drop courses after the course selection or verification process, the more significant the impact on class size, staffing, and overall schedule implications. Next slide. The staffing deficit is real, and providing a viable solution is complex. To allow students to meet the 21 course credit threshold by the end of their junior year of high school, the team proposed a full schedule requirement in 9th and 10th grade, requiring students to take 4 courses each semester for a maximum of 8 courses each year. The proposed requirement ensures the on-track measures for graduation with the ability to accept the diploma before the expected graduation year. We agreed to limit the number of course credit to no more than 12 additional courses beyond 10th grade, ultimately instituting a 28 course credit cap moving forward. We also discussed how additional credit has been awarded to courses in our flex period and what we used to call our skinny period, which occupies that time for lunch. Since we have adjusted our minimum course credit requirement, the need for additional credit does not exist, especially when the support during that time is more service-oriented than required coursework. The team discussed eliminating additional credit accumulation for support and services provided during our flex period, such as advanced placement, gifted seminar, music, and our WIN sections. We are not suggesting eliminating the programs or services. This will not impact meeting our 21 course credit threshold or limit student-needed support. We currently allow students who satisfy the 21 course credit state graduation requirement to accept their diploma at the end of their 11th grade school year. We have found that more students would be inclined to accept their diploma at that time if we expand senior activity opportunities. As we talked about the proposed change, we are cognizant of the impact changes have on the course selection guide previously approved by the School Board of Directors. For example, if allowed, offering a health and physical education credit to student athletes and members of the band would help satisfy state requirements and credit the student athletes and band participants without consuming a course in the student's schedule. In addition, any full-year course in a block schedule limits student flexibility. Therefore, eliminating a double-block full-year Algebra 2 financial literacy course, for example, allows for separate scheduling. Again, we believe in the benefit of these courses and will continue to encourage students to take them. However, we no longer have the luxury of offering such as a tied course. A full-year course, again, limits our ability to maximize staff and course flexibility. We will prepare recommended changes to the current administrative regulations, AR 17, early graduation, to mirror the proposed changes that we discussed this evening. As I mentioned in the presentation, limiting the ability to change and drop courses impacts our class size, staffing, and overall schedule. And at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Ms. Sarah Czar, who will provide more detailed information about the impact of scheduling timelines on our current situation. Sarah?
Thank you, Ms. Simone, Dr. Manfrey, Board President Brown, Dr. McGarry, and committee chairs. As Ms. Simone said, my name is Sarah Czar, and I'm a school counselor at the high school for the class of 2023. I'll be talking about the timeline for two types of schedule changes, specifically preferential changes and course withdrawals, which are known as withdraw pass or withdraw fail. I'll start with preferential changes, which occur when a student decides that they no longer prefer to take a certain course prior to the drop-add deadline that occurs each semester. This deadline typically takes place approximately 2 weeks into the semester. In this instance, if a student were to change to a different course prior to the drop-add deadline, there would be no penalty on their transcript and they could be placed into a new course. As an example, a student may come in the first week of school and state that they no longer want to take Introduction to Graphics, but would prefer to switch to accounting instead. There could be a number of reasons for these requests, but typically it's a matter of a student simply just changing their mind. Counselors typically receive an abundance of these requests at the start of the semester, which presents several challenges to staffing with this level of flexibility, as those new requests were not accounted for at the time of designing the master schedule. During the designated course selection period each year, counselors work very hard to meet with all our students on our caseload individually to help each student select courses as they relate to their unique individual post-secondary goals, interests, and career path. As a result, we are recommending the elimination of the 2-week drop-add period for preferential changes and are recommending that no preferential changes occur after May 1st of the previous school year. With the proposed May 1st deadline, we will be locking students into the courses that they and their families had the opportunity to discuss and choose with their counselors during this process. Since counselors typically conclude course selection in mid-April, this would still allow students and parents ample time to make any preferential changes during the designated course verification period prior to May 1st. With this shift in deadline, we would be recommending a strong communication plan in order to ensure that students and families are both aware of and adhere to the May 1st deadline. Our proposed communication resources for this plan include additions to the student handbook, announcements at back-to-school night, communication through Navion, Schoology, and social media, parent link messages from the school principal, morning announcements, and direct email communications to the students and guardians. In addition to preferential changes, we also have what's called a withdraw pass, withdraw fail process. These are courses that are dropped after the drop-add deadline. In this instance, students are given a WP or WF as a final grade on their transcript for the course that they are dropping, depending on if they are passing or failing the course at the time of withdrawal. This, in effect, changes the number of students and courses to a level that was not accounted for at the time of designing the master schedule. Circumstances for withdraw pass, withdraw fail vary, but in general are extenuating and limited in occurrence. For example, a student who is experiencing a mental health issue may become too overwhelmed with their coursework, which then further negatively contributes to their mental health. In an instance such as this one, it may be in the best interest of the overall holistic wellness of the student for them to be permitted to drop the course, as it could potentially help to prevent a mental health crisis later. These changes are not common and occur under the discretion of the counselor, student, parent, and assistant principal. For these extenuating circumstances, we propose to continue to allow withdraw pass, withdraw fail. However, we would like to design and implement a clearly defined process with required procedures in the rare event that a withdraw pass, withdraw fail request is more related to something such as a student's frustration with the material or a decline in interest. With newly defined procedures, including possible interventions to solve the issue, we believe this would instill perseverance in students, more open communication between all parties, and could limit any excess of withdraw pass, withdraw fails, and any negative scheduling implications as a result. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Finch, Assistant Principal of Operations at the high school, to talk about dual enrollment and other considerations.
Thank you, Ms. Czar, Ms. Simone, Dr. Manfrey, and Dr. McGarry, and also thank you to Board President Brown and the committee co-chairs for having this team here today to discuss this very important topic. I'm going to first be discussing the district's projection of a baseline cost analysis for paying for dual enrollment and how we perform that analysis. The first part of this process was to identify students in the class of 2023 who would be eligible to participate in a college-level dual enrollment course at Delaware County Community College. A little bit of background on Delaware County Community's process. They utilize several methods to determine if a student should be placed into a college-level course. One method, which is their most straightforward and a very common method, is to have the prospective students take a placement exam. The particular placement exam that Delaware County uses is the Accuplacer exam, which is a College Board design exam. At Upper Darby High School, we currently administer that Accuplacer as an end-of-course exam in 2 courses. That is college algebra and English skills and composition. In addition to the Accuplacer, Delaware County Community also places students through a waiver process, which means that the students may produce certain identified alternative assessments with qualifying scores that will demonstrate that they are capable of the college-level course material. Some examples of these alternative assessments that they accept are passing Keystone scores in Algebra 1 and Literature, SAT scores, PSAT scores, and high school transcripts with a qualifying GPA in a certain number of subject area classes. Now, when we analyzed the class of 2023, we were able to identify 370 students total that are projected to qualify for college-level dual enrollment courses using either the Accuplacer or one of the alternative assessments in the waiver process. The second part of the process was determining which of those students would actually be interested in a dual enrollment course if there was no cost to the student. For that, we administered a student interest survey. Using the results of that survey, we were able to project that we would have approximately 292 students who are projected to both be eligible for a college-level dual enrollment course at Delaware County Community College and would be interested in taking such a course if there is no cost to the student. From there, we took the estimated cost of a dual enrollment course to an Upper Darby High School student at about $190 per course, and we're able to get the estimates that are displayed, which found that if all of those, at the high end, if all of those 292 students would enroll in 5 courses, cost would be approximately $277,400. I'll now talk about considerations, if we can go to the next slide, okay. I'll now talk about considerations that came out of both the counseling meetings and further administrative meetings that will help address the staffing crisis. The high school should increase the number of students that are identified as eligible for a college-level dual enrollment course. An important action step towards this goal is expanding the administration of the Accuplacer exam at Upper Darby High School. The 2 courses that I previously discussed, in which we administer the Accuplacer, are primarily senior-level courses with very few juniors in them. So of that 370 students I mentioned that are eligible for a college-level dual enrollment, only 17 of them actually came from the Accuplacer. Moving forward, what we would like to do is look at expanding the courses in which we administer the Accuplacer exam to cast a wider net in that identification process. The team also spent a great deal of time discussing a 21-course pathway with additional support that would be designed for the student that is struggling to accrue the required credits, even with all the interventions that we have in place right now. The team is going to continue exploring this option, which we would like to bring forward at a later date. This pathway would include courses that are aimed at collaboratively building the executive functioning and organization skills that a student needs to be successful, combined with personalized goal setting for each student. Additionally, it would involve post-secondary skills acquisition, such as resume building and job skills training, above and beyond what is currently offered at Upper Darby High School. We also discussed what this plan would look like for students who have already accumulated 28 credits going into their senior year next year. To put that in perspective, that means that these students are in the class of 2023 are going into their senior year in the position of not only having met the state graduation requirements, but also exceeding those graduation requirements by up to 7 credits. You know, and where we're at with that is we're currently in the middle of our scheduling process for the 2023 school year, and almost all course selections have occurred with those students and their families. Due to the timing of this presentation, the proposed credit cap was not a part of that discussion during those course selection meetings, and as a result, we're proposing starting that 28 credit cap, not for the class of 2023, but for the following year's class of 2024. We feel that that will give us ample time to have those discussions and planning meetings with those families for the class of 2024. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Ms. Simone.
Thank you, Mr. Finch. In summary, as a response to the current staffing issues and dilemmas we face, we are supporting the idea that if students choose to remain past the Chapter 4 course requirement, we should cap the total number of course credits at 28 with the option of dual enrollment up to 5 course credits not to exceed 28, meaning out of the additional credits, 5 of the 7 can be dually enrolled. We also agree we should create a 21 credit pathway for students in need of enhanced support, and we will help students develop that post-graduation plan. Students graduating at the end of junior year will be eligible for senior activities for their junior year, more so than they are now. And we should adjust our withdrawal pass, withdrawal fail, and preferential change timeline, as Ms. Czar has so eloquently stated. And that concludes our portion of the presentation. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Manfrey.
Thank you, Mrs. Simone. Thank you, Sarah, James, and the entire counseling department. There were a lot of people involved in putting this presentation together. A lot of brilliant minds, I would say, trying to figure out how to combat a staffing crisis that the nation is dealing with. But school districts like Upper Darby School District is dealing with even more so. And so we believe that some of the things that we discussed this evening will have a positive impact on providing our students a really solid pathway to graduation and beyond. And so I thank you and your team for all the hard work that you put into this presentation. And with that, I will turn the presentation over for questions, or if Dr. McGarry would like to make comment and questions from the board.
Yeah, I just want to say, Kelly and Dr. Manfrey, you deal with me more frequently, and James has, unfortunately, lately. And it's never easy. I think being the scheduler of Upper Darby High School is a very, very difficult job. It's hard to make friends. It's often a powerful position, too, but it's not an easy job. And Sarah, I appreciate your courage coming up here tonight, because I know as a guidance counselor and guidance counselors in the high school, and you did an awesome job tonight. I want to say that to you. And James, you always do a great job, even though we have a lot of back and forths. They're hard positions, because at your heart, you're worried about all of the kids, and it's a very complicated process. I do want to give some statistics that are interesting. There's a State of Education in Pennsylvania report that comes out every year. And the number one challenge facing school districts in the Commonwealth is staffing shortages and constraints. It goes farther. In the foreseeable future, 99.6% of the school districts in the Commonwealth reported substantial staffing crisis moving forward. And what are we going to do to address those issues long term? I also received the Delaware County Community College budget that the board will be voting on soon. I'm going to read this paragraph, and I rarely like to read directly from something, but I think this is important. The number of recent graduates attending Delaware County Community College from Upper Darby High School is reported below. In addition to the number of 2021 graduates who attended in the fall of 21, we're including the cumulative number of 2017 graduates who have attended since their graduation. You can see how the percentage of Upper Darby High School graduates who have attended Delaware County Community College increases substantially after 4 years. Most of these additional students either went into the workforce and realized that they needed more higher education, or just felt that they couldn't get into that atmosphere yet. So in 2021, 136 students. For the class of 2017, it goes up to 275 students, almost a 35% increase. Part of this, I think, is important, that if we can offer access earlier to that community college at no cost, we can help kids get their foot in the door and might be able to change their future for the long term. Because if more kids are going back after they graduate, maybe we can open that barrier and break through that for kids sooner, given that we have a crisis on our hands and the community colleges certainly would like to see an increase of students attending. There's potentially a win-win here for our kids and for our community long term. That's just Upper Darby School District students. That's not the number of kids in this community that are going to Delaware County Community College. So again, compliments to all of you handling this very complicated process. The long-term implications, I'm still concerned that going into this school year, that while we have 28 credits, I'm still concerned from this process until the school year starts, that we make sure that come July, we're giving those students an opportunity, if there isn't a high school class, to enroll at Delaware County Community College. I know Dr. Manfrey said, I want to emphasize it again, we called Delaware County today. August 24th is the last day you can register for classes at Delaware County Community College. We just want to make sure we have an educational opportunity for kids coming into the next school year.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I'm thrilled to see a plan to help our students fund dual enrollment, and an encouragement on the part of the high school staff to get students to take that opportunity, because college is expensive, and potentially they could have a whole semester where they wouldn't have to fund going forward if they choose the 4-year route. I think one of my main questions with the capping and all this that we're talking about, I'm just worried that there isn't enough time. It's 1 month till you no longer will take any course changes. Are students going to know in this next month what courses will be available to them? And then to be able to say, well, I will take dual enrollment next year. My second question is the current sophomore class of 2024. Are they being counseled this year for college planning for next year, since they would possibly be graduating in their junior year?
Can I start with this that led to this whole conversation, and you can weigh in on from an expert granular level? I want to be crystal clear what started this meeting. When we started to look at the staffing crisis, I called for a meeting here with the guidance counselors on March 30th. The original intent was to find out how many students can we actually get into dual enrollment? What does that look like? That started a much grander conversation. We decided to then meet with the guidance counselors and have them have time to process and be a part of it. Oftentimes in districts, it's like, here's what we're going to do, figure it out. We wanted to be collaborative and really see, how it's going back and forth. So first, there's a staffing crisis. So whether it's 21 credits, 22 credits, or 23 credits, my fear has been for the last several months, and I've talked to just about anybody who will listen, I'm more worried about not having a teacher for 21 credits, let alone the credits above and beyond that. That's important, number one. The reason why I wanted to focus on the dual enrollment is that if our kids have an opportunity to get that, and we couldn't fill that FTE, that full-time teacher here, we can at least use that money to cover making sure they weren't sitting in a study hall, they didn't have a daily sub that wasn't qualified, they were getting an education in a content area that they'd be getting something out of, versus showing up to Upper Darby High School in August and not having a teacher in those classes. That was priority one. Secondly, there are a high number of students right now, seniors, and going into next year, who have already proposed not coming to school with a full schedule. So there's fewer than 200 students coming out of a 900-student cohort with a full schedule this year. Next year, as James had talked about, there's only 77 students. So as we look at what it used to be and what it is now, there might not be the same appetite to want to stay for 32 credits or more. Remember, the state is asking for 21 classes. We're giving 28. That's a lot of courses. It's still almost 5 years of high school that we're offering kids. And I'm concerned that even the 28 courses in the current environment with the staffing shortage, I'm worried that we're not going to be able to staff, not just here, anywhere, the 28 classes for 4,000 students.
My question had to do with the timeline, though. It's 1 month away. I want to know if the families will know by May 1st that their students would need to dual enroll.
Ms. Mitchell, I think you're missing what part of the conversation was. Next year, this timeline is different than the sophomore class. Next year, the presentation stated, going into next school year, we're not imposing this on next year's students. The current sophomores are going to have time to process through that. So this is for next year's seniors. My concern is next year's seniors next year, the seniors going into next year that are seniors, they will have an opportunity to take more than 28 credits. My concern is, where is the staffing going to be to fill it? So the timeline will be, they're talking with students now. They'll know that we're going to make an announcement also that by July, we're going to have to let you know that there isn't a teacher available. We're shifting that FTE over to cover you to enroll in a Delaware County Community College class.
So I think that I can address, I think that Mrs. Mitchell's concern is about, first, the May 1st timeline has no impact on students this year. So there's no worry there. The current sophomore class, the 2020-2024 sophomore class, the question you asked about them, whether or not they're being counseled appropriately to form their graduation plan. I want to say that I want to thank Mrs. Elgart and the entire counseling department. That process actually begins and has begun in 7th grade at the middle school level. We actually have documents that we have our students work on with the counselors at the middle school level that follow them up to the high school. So regardless of this presentation, our kids in Upper Darby School District being counseled about their graduation plan as early as 7th grade. And so the current sophomore class is being and has been counseled appropriately to put a graduation plan in place. And now there will be plenty of time for them to be counseled appropriately regarding dual enrollment or any other goals that they may have in the future. And I'm happy to allow Sarah or James or Kelly to weigh in on that as well. But I do know that a lot of time and effort and energy dating all the way back to 2017 at Drexel Hill Middle School's auditorium, when the reduction of the credit from 26 to 21 discussion took place, and how we were going to counsel our kids, and we promised that we would begin counseling our students at the middle school level. That has been happening and is happening as we speak, but I'm happy to allow the team to weigh in on that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Manfrey. And as Dr. Manfrey said, that May 1st deadline isn't going to be for students for next year. I will say that date already has the groundwork laid for it, where our current process, that's the natural end to our course verification process currently. So families, after every student has that course selection meeting with their counselor, they have a period of time where they verify their courses for next year and look at them and okay them. And if they want to make any changes in their requests, they can go ahead and do that, and then that's what we base and design and implement our master schedule on. So that May 1st deadline is, it's already kind of built into the process now. We're just proposing to make that more of a finality deadline than, what it is now, which is just the end of one verification process.
Sort of, but Dr. McGarry said 2 times that in July, students would be contacted that they would have to switch to dual enrollment. Is that happening this summer?
Again, the reason why the dual enrollment this summer may have to happen, I want to be crystal clear again at the beginning of this conversation, just like why we got to this point. And that's why I read these statistics. Forget a credit cap. We could have 50 credits at the high school, right? My concern is whether it's the 21 graduation courses that we have to give students, all the way up to 32. My concern is, with a number of teachers leaving the profession and the staffing shortage, regardless of dual enrollment and regardless of a cap on credits, the reason why I went to the administration at the high school and the Dr. Council was, I'm very concerned that for the first time in my career, this is not coming to the board or the public and saying, we want to cut staff to balance a budget. Our concern is, will we be able to hire the 4 math teachers that left this spring for next school year? Versus, as the presentation shows, we've got to make sure that the math teachers that we have cover the required math courses before electives are offered so that those kids can meet their graduation requirements. What I propose and what I've asked them to look into is, hey, guess what? There's got to be a deadline here. They're already starting to talk about kids who have already, by the way, the vast majority are well above 28 credits. We have students who have already met our graduation requirements of 26. Many students, 645, are already above 28 credits. 645 students are above 28 credits, okay? That's very substantial. When we go into next school year, if we lose, as Dr. Council presented, 5, 6, 7% of our staff. Historically, we try to make up that ground and find those teachers. And I could be wrong. I hope I am. My fear is we're not going to find teachers, right? So I don't want a kid walking in August to a math class, and now, on top of not being able to have a sub, we won't be able to hire a teacher. And now we're going to tell those kids, well, you're going to have to go home for the day because we can't cover a study hall and we don't have a teacher. The ultimate plan is we want to hire a math teacher. We want to hire a science teacher. But there's got to be a point of no return where we're telling kids, okay, we're really worried that they're not out there, so we're going to communicate with you, you've met your graduation requirements, but we're going to let you stay above those credits. Hey, if we can use the FTE money because we can't hire the teacher, we're going to get a hold of you starting now with a drop-dead end of July, so they still have 24 days into August to pick those courses at Delaware County, and we're going to cover those costs for you to be able to go there, versus my fear is they show up in August, we have no teacher, they're stuck in a study hall, and on top of the study hall, we can't find a stub to cover the study hall. So we're trying to be almost overreactive to planning for this, versus in some school districts, it might be you're in a study hall or you're going home for the day. We're trying to find a creative way to say, okay, let's create a plan to offer you a good opportunity, dual enroll, get those credits, while still trying to fill the teaching position. So yeah, there'll be a conversation starting now with a drop-dead timeline that we haven't verified until you guys, the board says, okay, we're okay with this, we're comfortable with it. Then we're going to put together and publish the exact timeline, the dates, and when those mile markers will be had, and we'll have public forums with parents in the community on that. I'm very concerned, as a superintendent of schools, that there are kids that are going to roster classes, and come August, we may not have a teacher. And our priority has to be, we still have to get those kids to the 21 course. That's going to be the priority. So what do we do for the students that Sarah said to me in a meeting the other day? Well, Dr. McGarry, what are we going to do with the kid who's already got 28 credits now for next year? We've got to do something for that student. What about the student who's got 30 credits right now? So we're trying to plan for all these moving pieces. For the first time, like I said, if we could hire the staff, if they existed in this profession, we would. My fear is there are fewer and fewer people doing this job. That's the crisis. So we need to plan for those kids, all those kids, and then plan for the future to say the reality is we can't offer this wide breadth any longer because no one's going into the profession. That's why I started so early on, and Board President Brown said to me, all right, we got to end on something positive with that, my superintendent's report that night. I want to get out ahead of and saying to people, this is for real. It's being published everywhere. There is a significant staffing crisis. We're going to add reading specialists to our budget later on. We're going to add other staff. We might not be able to hire them. That's part of the concern.
The other piece is, as a result of this evening, the counseling department is going to circle back with students. We are going to share that conversation that, listen, you may come back in August and there may not be this AP stat class that you want. So here's your opportunity. Take a dual enrollment class so that you can ensure you will have that class. So we are going to go back to your point and have those conversations, even though, as Mr. Finch said before, we have had the one-on-one through this course selection process. Counselors meet with every student. They have a verification process. Parents are able to see and be able to make those changes, but we will circle back as a result of this evening, which isn't typical, but we will do it for those reasons.
And I'm assuming you'll be offering the Accuplacer exam before the end of the school year so that students have that opportunity.
Yeah, so two things. One, yeah, we have another round of the Accuplacer coming up. We have, our college algebra and our English skills and composition courses are in the second semester as well. So we'll be giving the Accuplacer there, which will be before the end of the year. And additionally, I want to add that one thing that, Dr. McGarry always tells me that sticks in my mind is language matters, and being able to be on the same page of what we're talking about really matters. And when we're talking about this May 1st deadline, that is a preferential change deadline. So that is the student who's saying, you know what, I thought I wanted intro to foods, but now I want intro to business. I'm going to make that change. What that is not is we do not have the staff for a AP Calc class, and now we have to, you may have to go to a dual enrollment course. That's not considered a preferential change. So that May 1st date wouldn't affect those at all. Any of those changes that have to happen because of staffing implications are not considered preferential. That May 1st date would not affect those changes at all, either this year or next year.
Yep, just a quick comment and question. My comment, first, thank you for a great presentation, very informative. Sarah, James, two more rock stars added to the team. My comment is, I wanted to just thank you for the breakdown, the cost breakdown of dual enrollment, because I felt that I needed to get smarter about how much it costs to administer that and what the potential cost could be. So thank you for slide 8. That really helped me. My question is, I just want to correct me if I'm wrong, that all things considered, that what you're proposing is the best option. Staffing shortages, the costs, all the issues, all the variables you have to look at. What you're proposing is the best possible outcome based on your entire team, correct? Okay.
I can too appreciate your presentation tonight as a high school parent whose child took 2 courses each semester and was sitting home because she wasn't ready for dual enrollment. I felt that it was, not in her best interest or our best interest as a district for her to be enrolled in courses when other students could have been taking those seats. But I do have 2 questions. The first question is in regards to enrolling those students over the summer. By July, are counselors or staff going to be available at the school during the month of July to be able to support those students, or are they going to be able to reach people here at the school for questions and scheduling the dual enrollment program?
Well, administrators, of course, are here, but counselors also have 10 days over the summer that they come in, and we spread them out and we schedule them. So we would utilize those 10 days to help assist with this process.
That'll be prior to the deadline for DCCC?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry. Additionally, I'd like to mention that we talked about the July date, but all the students that we have identified, they are identified down to the granular level. Like we have the student IDs of them, the contact information for each individual student. So that process of alerting those families to that opportunity and starting that can happen, as soon as we want to get started and get that ball rolling.
Okay. The other question goes back to what you said earlier, Mr. Finch, as far as the May 1st deadline. And I understand what that deadline is. My concern would be for the students that want to have the opportunity to switch or not sure, would they have the opportunity to drop into other courses prior to the May 1st deadline to see if that's something they could possibly, be interested in? So if my choice is childcare and then I say, oh, I may want to change my mind, would they be able to drop in a course prior to the drop session, or would they be locked in? Because that would be, a concern would be, for me would be, they'd be locked into a course that they hate and they would fail.
So the May 1st date is request only. We don't necessarily run the schedule until after that. What we're saying is you have an opportunity up until May 1st to make your requests. You also have the opportunity to select a backup course. So what you're saying is if you're not able to schedule into your preference, that you're willing to take your second choice. So the May 1st cutoff is the requested courses. It doesn't mean the courses that you actually get scheduled into. We have to lock in at some point so that Mr. Finch can actually run the schedule and make sure that everything is secure before we roll those schedules out.
Okay, so they still will have opportunity to drop it.
There's a verification process up until May 1st that students and parents can make changes. It's not.
And one thing I will say is that we do every year do like an elective fair course selection presentation where we try to get like videos that are engaging that talk about the different courses that we have to offer. Because I think kind of what you're saying is like students kind of want to see what they're getting themselves into. So we do try to present that every year before going into course selection, and we share that like on our Schoology page and website as well.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Just, Ms. Lamar, so I can follow up on, I think, part of your question too. So what Mrs. Simone is explaining is there's a request process, and then let's say the two of us pick a certain math elective, and there are only 12 other kids who pick it. We may have requested that class, we may have heard about it, we may like it, but because we request it doesn't mean we get it. Because as I said earlier, part of this other concern is there's also, certainly through the pandemic and now, a number of students who have failed the Chapter 4 classes they need to retake. So the priority has to be, we can't run that student class of 12, especially in a staffing crisis. That math teacher is going to have to run the algebra, 9th grade algebra class to get the class size down so we can help those students do well in the class. So we might not get that elective just because we requested it. And also, I think part of it is there is still a withdrawal fail process even after the request happens for those students on the transcript. The concern is that the high school needs to lock in by May 1st to something so that they know which math class I can run versus which elective I can run. And that's why this has become so complicated. Many school districts say, look, it's 24 courses. You can only take these electives in 9th grade. You can only take these electives in 10th grade. Upper Darby is saying, here's the whole book. Request the book. We've been working on processing down to what we can staff and what you need to graduate. Can you imagine there have been high school students historically who have accumulated 30 credits, but still 30 courses. No, I can't. 30 courses, but they still haven't met the graduation requirements by the state.
Director Desnoyers?
Thank you to everyone who had a hand in preparing and presenting this very thorough presentation. I can appreciate that scheduling a city the size of this high school is a bear. But let's see. Question 1. Dr. McGarry, you said 650 students have already hit the 28 credits. How many of those are graduating this June 2022?
So when I look at the information now, and James and Kelly and Sarah can certainly jump in, the current sophomore class is the first real class that we implemented a much more strategic process of making sure that you've met your state graduation requirement, junior class, I'm losing my years, that you've definitely met your graduation requirements, right?
Okay.
So going into next school year, that class first, there are only 77 students that are requesting going into next school year that need to take a full schedule because the vast majority of those students have already met state and local graduation requirements of 21 and or 26.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So this year's group of students, to answer the question, the 645 number that I gave you, there are 645 students who have 26 and a half, 28 credits or more. Now, most, if not all of those students will be able to graduate this June based on their credits because they've exceeded their credits. There are a handful of kids that I look at that I'm concerned about, however, and this is based on previous practices of spreading out courses. There are some students still in their senior year who have not met the 21 state requirement credits. And so when I started to meet with Kelly and James about this 3 years ago now, I said, look, we've got to make sure that they're meeting what they need to graduate before we open up all of these things. You can't have a senior going into their senior year needing a social studies class or a math class to graduate, and that they've taken 28 courses already. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I completely agree. And,
Okay.
and those students, if we cause them a headache, I'm not going to lose sleep. Okay. Did I hear correctly, Mr. Finch, that the schedule is only run once?
Well, not so much only run once in the sense that there is, that I press the button one time and it, it magically appears there. And that really kind of talks to a scheduler's personal philosophy of what the schedule is. I kind of envision the schedule as being a living, breathing being that changes depending upon students' needs. One thing that going back to this May 1st deadline is, and the reason why we do have to lock in is because, it's not as simple as a student switching a course. In their request. We use those requests to say, oh, you know what, we need one extra business teacher next year. We go out and hire that business teacher, and then students change from business to technology education, then we're sitting there with not enough tech ed teachers and too many business teachers, okay? So there is kind of a snapshot in time that we have to take, and that snapshot is May 1st, in which we, design and implement that schedule over. But no, there's not like one date and one certain time when I press one single button and everything happens.
When we're talking about dual enrollment and we've heard the figure 28 credits and a cap, are we saying that if any credits over, and I'll just say the cap, because maybe the cap changes, any credits over the cap must be taken dual enrollment?
Now, we're saying that the cap of 28 includes dual enrollment courses.
Okay. I would prefer something like a cap for credits taken on this campus with any additional credits if a student wants, taken via dual enrollment, but with that, we'd have to provide transportation. And then whatever the cap is, we'd have to play with the data to set it appropriately.
Right. So that conversation took place at length. And originally, we were going to only allow students to dual enroll up to 26 credits after they've met the state and local graduation requirements of 21 credits. Essentially, what we've done, Mr. Desnoyers, is said you can take up to 28 credits, but beyond the 21, 5 of them you'll be permitted as dual enrollment courses. Okay. The other 2 can be in-house, but the other 5 must be dual enrollment courses.
Okay.
I want to add to that too. It could be 7.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do 5 because we're trying to figure out what we can afford.
Okay.
And based on the fact that we only have 292 kids right now, and to the other comment, that qualify, we've got to get more kids to qualify too, because there's also an issue at the high school where kids need to be successful in their courses, right?
Right.
So I think part of this is important. And I want to make sure I'm hearing part of your question that you had asked as well. We simply have to be careful of going more than 28 credits, 28 courses I'll use. Again, back to the original point, for staffing. I don't know that we'd be here right now having this conversation, other than if there were a financial issue that we were really in dire straits, that we'd have to look at restricting the credits. Part of this conversation is about not setting ourselves up for, we're going to offer you all these courses and not have anybody to staff it, which I think everybody understands at this point.
I just want to make one clarification. You can take up to 7 additional credits.
Okay.
5 of them can be dual enrollment, but no more than 5, but you don't have to take 5 of the 7 as dual enrollment.
Oh, see, okay.
No, we're not forcing dual enrollment at this point. We talked about requiring it, but the team said at this point, we're not requiring all students to take dual enrollment beyond the 21. But if you choose to take dual enrollment courses, you can take up to 5 of the 7.
I could see, I could support if we were to choose, an on-campus cap of, say, 23 credits or 24 credits or something like that, and saying, if you want to go above that, it's dual enrollment. That was my plan. I could support that. But here's the thing, because if a student is just interested in accumulating credits, they can take basket weaving dual enrollment for all I care. So Does that make sense? We need to figure out something that works to get us through the next.
Yeah. So I want to be crystal clear. When I proposed this to the team, I was proposing originally, back I think to Ms. Mitchell, our back and forth, which I understand your concern is giving kids enough time to pick the courses if they don't have something. My concern, which I hope I'm making it clear, is a combination of two of these. I'm worried that we're not going to have a teacher, and then kids are going to miss out on a great educational opportunity. The other part of this is, by the nature of a schedule that was put in place many, many years ago in block scheduling, the nature of the block schedule at this high school is very expensive. If kids take 8 classes a year, they get 32 courses over 4 years. A lot of period schedules, where I've worked previously, can only get 24 courses because they are 41-minute period classes that go for the whole year. Like my son can only get so many classes. It doesn't exist. Now, a lot of that has to do with also this is what you need, and there's a financial implication of staffing. We're in a unique situation. So what I originally proposed to the high school, my biggest fear was, hey, 21 credits, we give them here on campus. We offer kids an opportunity to go to the prom and if they're ready at junior year, they can go to the prom, they can graduate, they can participate in senior events, which we talked about, that's okay. The high school guidance counselors came back to the meeting and said, look, Dr. McGarry, 21 or 23 and making them dual enroll might not be the best path. So we had a conversation with the team here at the high school, and I agree, excellent team members. My original thought, board member doesn't know yours, to your comment was, let's come up with a number that says you've got to take dual enrollment at some point instead of keep ramping up all these classes. Part of the concern is there is a pathway for that. The guidance counselors and Sarah and the team are talking about a pathway for that, but there's also a pathway that there's some kids who might not be ready for that. Now, what I'm saying to everybody is, I think what we are talking about is going to happen naturally because there might be Delaware County Community College teachers available with space, more so than we're going to be able to hire the math teacher or the carpentry class that we want to offer kids. So that's why I'm trying to make sure that we have a timeline earlier and communicate saying we're not here in August saying, well, James, you're a brilliant mathematician. We have no math classes for you to take. And we can't put you in a study hall. We have nowhere for you to go. We're trying to create the mechanism that offers the best of both worlds. There's optimistic people that think we might staff it. And so the other part I want to be clear is, if we can staff the teachers that leave this summer, dual enrollment really doesn't become an option that we're paying for, because the only way you can pay for this dual enrollment is by not being able to fill the teaching position. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Can we pay for dual enrollment with ARP funds because this is a pandemic, the staffing shortage is partly a pandemic issue?
So I didn't want to open that can of worms up here, but I opened that can of worms up in another meeting, and Craig and I and Wendy are looking into that. But please, this shouldn't be out there for public consumption yet. We're looking at, as a backup plan, worst case scenario, can we use the ARP funding to do that?
Okay, and then I have I have one final thing, and it's just a statement. The counseling out of students who exhibit behavior issues is a non-starter for me. Did everybody hear that? Okay.
Yeah, it's a non-starter on the slide as well.
Okay.
I just have one other comment. I don't want to keep belaboring the point. And I understand that we're not babysitters, or our job is to educate students and get them on their way. But what happens to those non-college bound students who are 16 and 17 that are not interested in dual enrollment, but they meet their college requirement, their high school requirements? Are they just in the community just hanging out, or is there a plan to help them develop to get a job or do something? Is there some sort of family counseling?
Yeah, I don't remember the slide number, but our counseling department had addressed that. Oh, yeah, sure.
So what we're referring to is that we currently have interventions and supports in place, but we're looking to enhance those supports, in particular for these students who do struggle along the way, more so than we have in place now. So more supports than we have in place now. We're looking at, really trying to think outside the box, using school psychologists potentially in a different way, goal setting, resume building, job skills, more so than we currently have, to make it a very strategic pathway for a very specific student that we know needs help and that may not be ready to dual enroll, which is one of the reasons that we didn't agree to require everyone to dual enroll, because not everyone is capable or in a position to do that. So that was our reasoning behind that. But we're
And
looking.
not just, I'm not speaking just about kids who are not, I'm talking about kids who are just not interested in going to college, period.
I would only add to that concern that our counseling department, again, going all the way back to 7th grade at the middle school, is responsible for counseling kids into appropriate paths, not just whether or not you're going to go to college and which college you're going to go to, but if you're a student in 7th grade, one similar to someone who lives in my household, and you're not interested in going to college, then we will be counseling that student into a path that will take them into a career, such as a career and technical education pathway, or some other pathway through our business certifications program here at Upper Darby High School. And so that's part of what the counselors do going all the way back to 7th grade, which is what we wanted to talk about in bullet point 2 on this slide, a 21 credit pathway for students in need of enhanced support. The students will develop a post-graduation plan with their counselor. The counselor will sit with the student and put together a post-graduation plan and what it's going to look like for them once they leave Upper Darby High School. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. We're responsible in Upper Darby School District and every school district for college and career artifact collection. We identify students very early on if they are not interested in going to a university or a college, and it is our job as part of the PA Future Ready Index to counsel them into appropriate careers and appropriate pathways outside of the college and university experience. And that's what bullet point 2 here talks about on this slide.
There's two other factors. We are having 2 parent information nights, and we're going to have them every year. We're going to have a 7th into 8th grade and an 8th into 9th grade, getting 7th grade parents in a Naviance, understanding what that looks like, and then 8th into 9th grade, we're actually bringing Naviance in to run these workshops for parents. We're going to do workshops for the community this summer. On top of that, we put in a couple years ago a program where we're exposing middle school students to 60 careers. By the time they leave the middle schools, they should be exposed to close to 60 careers through Naviance so that they have some understanding coming out of 8th grade of, okay, what does it look like to do this job? What kind of education do I need? What does it pay? Like, what's the career path? So these are the things we've been layering over the last 3 to 4 years to get to this moment. Part of the other concern, as you know, as an educator, we're also struggling to find good, talented people to fill these other roles. We were talking prior to this meeting with Sarah in there that we also need more interventions for kids, like more opportunities, those interventions that we're trying to find. So we're going to continue to work on this over a period of time, but the students are speaking to us as well. If we only have 197 students in our high school this year that wanted a full schedule and 77 for next year, I think a lot of our kids are also being asked to work earlier. So that's another part of this that we need to figure out and make some adjustments with. What are our community needs? What are our student needs? And how do we make sure that they're best set up? So it's a multi-pronged approach to try to solve this problem, especially with 4,000 high school students.
Yeah, and I'd like to additionally add to your concern about 16 and 17-year-olds who aren't ready for a college experience and are, just out there in the community, to define what this 28 credits would look like for one of those students. So a 28 credit career at the high school would look like this. It would be a full course load in their 9th grade year, full course load in their 10th grade year, could be a full course load in their 11th grade year, and then in their senior year they would have they would be able to take 2 credits one semester and 2 credits another semester. They'd be allowed to do late arrival or early dismissal for that senior year then in both those semesters, and really a lot of our students take that option now at 28 credits, and they go home one block early, or come in one block late. So that 28 credit cap isn't far off from what our students currently do just by choice now at this current time. It's not going to like push students out in their junior year. You know, that option of going up to 28 credits, whether it's dual enrollment courses or whether it's courses at Upper Darby High School, is still going to provide ample opportunity for students to, you know, engage in our school and all the wonderful activities and courses that we have to offer.
Unfortunately, I have a lot of questions, although I think some of them are quick. I hope some of them are quick. I first just want to confirm, we know for sure that DCCC has like the courses and the slots for this. Like there's no question of them being able to accommodate 300 students, right? And when I say accommodate them, I mean, for example, the hope, at least for me, would be that students are taking transfer level courses, because I know that's a problem sometimes. In particular, that would be very upsetting if the student was paying for it themselves, right? If they're paying for it and then they're not actually getting a transfer level course. Now, if we're paying for it, I feel a little less urgency on that. But do we know for sure that there's the space?
We know that Delaware County Community College continually asks us for more students.
Great. Okay. And that there are transfer level classes that they can take.
Yeah, one thing in doing this analysis, we looked at students who would be able to go into college-level courses.
Right.
I'll add to that. Drexel is one of the programs that has a specific articulation agreement. Most of the universities around here have an articulation agreement with Delaware County Community College. Drexel's specifically asking that when you they'll accept up to 36 credits. Their concern is if you took an English class that's dual enrolled, but it also counts for graduation from high school, we're not going to take that piece of it. So this is, again, that's why it's important, back to Board Member Desnoyer's point that I agree with. They're already going to have met their 21 requirements for graduation. Anything above that can count for those credits toward college. So they could get a number of classes, to your point. We've looked into this. This has been a concern in the past.
And then another quick one, just that the $190 is listed as per student. That's per student, not per course?
Yeah, I noticed that too, and we were talking about that. Yeah, that should be per course.
Okay,
You're
so
right.
when we're budgeting 292, but some students are going to take more than one, it's going to be more than that, right?
Well, no, the calculation was done with 190 per course. Now, it's just merely the word student should be changed to course in that slide.
Okay, but you said we had 292 students. Is it 292 students, or is it 292 course needs?
Right, yep. Can we go back to that slide, please? Yeah, so this is the slide we're talking about, am I right? Okay, yeah, so that's 292 individual students. That the estimated cost of dual enrollment course to a Upper Darby High School student equals $190 per course. That should say per course. The calculations down below are like if we had 292 students doing one course at $190 a course, that would be $55,000, you know, so on and so forth. So that when we talk about the 277,000, that's really the maximum. That's the high level, and all those 292 students, to your earlier point, that is for college level dual enrollment.
Great. Okay. And then if beyond the 28, is there anything to stop a student if they want to for paying for something themselves? Would they be eligible, or no, they're not eligible?
They can pay for themselves. There's a process that we have, an AR, an approval process that goes through the principal to take and pay for their own dual enrollment to count. But again, what we have to be careful is, and also transfer student credits, but we have to be careful in our process what we're allowing to count for our graduation requirements in this process. But of course, and we've had students do that historically, if they want to pay for their own, they can.
All right, great. And then sort of back to Ms. Mitchell's question about May 1st. You said that the schedule is that there's a mid-April sort of completion, and then they're given until May 1st. Is there sort of, I can't tell how flexible that is, and is there a guarantee that there's at least some minimum, say, 2 weeks or something that they get to respond? Right, like if things aren't sort of, I'm just worried that there's not like a compression that sometimes happens if things get delayed, and all of a sudden, oh, sorry, we only finished it on, April 25th, but now you still have to decide by May 1st, something like that.
Yeah, I believe we have our internal timelines that we stick to pretty pretty strictly. But I think if something would come up where it did get pressed, we could approach that on a situation by situation, and make an exception for maybe that year. But as far as our internal timeline, though, we stick to those pretty good. And again, with that May 1st, that's a preferential change. It's preferential. It's kids going from intro to business to now, intro to foods. It's not, we don't have the staffing for this course, we got to change. That wouldn't be considered preferential, so.
Are you asking, though, is there time to see what's been requested prior to the May 1st, enough time to see the verification in order to make suggested changes by May 1st? Is that your question?
Right, I just want to make sure that it doesn't ever happen that sort of there isn't really.
There is a verification timeline, and there's time for parents and students to see it, see what's requested, and make sure that's accurate, and then that's what they can submit prior to May 1st if there's any discrepancy.
Right. On to the question about losing credit for flex period. I don't know, do all flex period activities get credit? Some do, some don't right now. I'm just sort of curious what kind of reaction that's going to produce.
Sure. So most of our activity in flex does not get credit. A couple years ago, we changed from what was called the grade room. I don't know if you remember that term. And then we went to learning communities, and now it's the flex period. But we really tried to, there's no need for that credit accumulation whatsoever. So we are not taking away services, because really what's happening in the flex is additional service and support, our interventions, our Act 158. So most of our flex activity does not award credit. It will not impact credit accumulation. It will not impact the 21 credit or even the 28 credit threshold.
Okay, so then my question from that is, I'm a little bit confused about the phys ed requirements, and particularly giving credit for band, but I'll let that one go. But only because, and I'll be clear, my high school actually did that. We had 7th period PE, and if you were an athlete in an after-school sport, you did 7th period PE. We only had 7 periods. And then when you were in your sport, you just were released, and which was very nice, because then traveling for games conflicted less. And then when you weren't in your sport, you were in PE, which worked out really nicely. So it makes sense to me on that level, but it seems to go sort of again, like we're taking away credits here, but we're giving credits there, and I'm just sort of trying to understand the rationale for those two different choices.
So obviously, physical education is always a high school 1980s nightmare. But so I'll tell you the band piece first. First, right now in Pennsylvania, technically, there's a discussion about, some states have done this. Pennsylvania currently doesn't allow both to go. So health may still be required. Physical education, you may not be able to drop. So in PDE's code, it says, Pennsylvania School Code nor the State Board of Education allows for the waivers for students from the requirements of health and physical education due to participation in a physical activity such as interscholastic sports, band, or ROTC. So that's why that language is in the presentation specifically. But this is another area it's another area where it might free up band and student athletes to take another course of interest versus having to take a physical education course. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'll also add that in physical education, we have a lot of electives that students historically request very high amounts that we can't run currently because we have to give that core physical education credit, okay, to everybody. So this what we're looking at this for is that may free up some staffing, not to move that staffing anywhere else, but to use them to run more of those physical education electives that students are very interested in taking, that we are very kind of limited in offering because we have to offer that health credit to everyone.
I think that's it. I'll let Mr. Fields go.
I have a couple questions. What's an Accuplacer exam?
The Accuplacer is the placement exam that Delaware County Community College uses. It's designed by the College Board, which is the same company that makes like the AP exams that we've probably all heard of, and the PSAT and the SAT. So it's another product that College Board has that is there to assist not just Delaware County Community College, but other colleges in placing their students.
Checks college placement.
it checks college placement in both math and English. Yes.
There are other ways, and I was going to ask Mr. Finch to talk about this, that students from Upper Darby High School or any high school can become eligible or qualified, so to speak, beyond Accuplacer to go to Delaware County Community College in our dual enrollment program. It's not just, you did? Okay, thank you.
It's easy
That's a
to
good
throw
question.
terminology around that maybe people don't know exactly what it is, so thank you for that. On average, so I don't need a precise number, when do most students hit the 21 required credits, not 21 credits, but the 21 credits they need to graduate?
By the end of their junior year, excluding this current senior class. The first class to be required to have the 21 credits by the end of their junior year is the class of 2023, the current 11th graders.
Okay, great. I know, so we talked about credit for athletics and stuff like that. I know we mentioned one time, maybe it can, have we looked at credit for people that have part-time jobs or activities outside of school? I don't know, maybe it's too difficult, and I don't know why I'm looking at you. I should be looking at you.
It's okay.
But I know it came up one time. And
Is
I
this
don't
for
know-
physical education or just courses in general?
Part-time jobs.
Work-based learning and part-time jobs, do we award credit for that?
No, we do not. We are working on a presentation, I think, coming up with that, or we did already, I can't remember at this point in time, with the job work study shadowing, the EDSI process. But right now, we do not have that. There used to be a process here in the school where students had an early release, a work release program. Mr. Scanlon was the teacher back in the day that ran that program. There was grant funding for those programs. That grant funding went away. But right now, we do not award credit for students who are working. No.
Okay. And we talked about, I don't know, can a student take a community college course over the summer?
Yes.
Right? And, okay.
And get credit?
Yeah. Okay. What is the best, Dr. Manfrey, I know I've asked you this before, but maybe it's changed. What is the best a motivated student can do as far as college credit? By the time they hit, let's say, I don't know, by the time they hit the 28 credits or whatever it is, I guess.
We've had students leave Upper Darby High School with, 40.
A significant amount has been dual enrollment. What we're saying, because we also have an AR that we have to follow. So you have to go through the process of pre-approval with the principal for it to show up on your transcript. That doesn't limit you from actually going and taking the course, but you have to follow a process for you to have it show up on your high school transcript. But students have taken courses even without our approval because they want to qualify. And that's allowable. So what we're saying moving forward is 5 of the 7 additional courses can be dual enrollment.
Okay.
They can take more, but 5 will show up on their transcript with approval process.
5, okay. And that, I'm going to circle, not tonight, but I think I'm going to have a question about that, but I'm going to circle back to that. So I do want to say, there's a bunch of issues that this is addressing. A couple of them are local, and a couple of them are national issues. So this isn't a question, but this is a comment. Graduation rates, we're trying to address. High school overcrowding, I don't think a week goes by where probably somebody in this room doesn't get an email about the overcrowded high school. Staffing issues, which we've been talking about a lot, and college costs, too. Not everybody is going to get a full ride to any college of their choice, right? And so, and if you're the first person in your family to go to college, it is, everything's so new, and there's no one in the house that can provide guidance because you're the first, right? And let's say you're not the first, but your parents went to college 20, 30 years ago. It's a lot different, right? And the costs are different. And I think these strategies do a lot to address those things that are not necessarily an issue for Upper Darby, but Upper Darby is positioned to address with some of these changes. And so I appreciate that. I really do. And not everybody's going to go to college. And there, I think it's great that we can identify that, because not everybody should go to college. Right now I have a college graduate, and I have a son who went into the trades. And, you know, they both went where they needed to go. I remember when I was in high school, I'm sure when a lot of us were in high school, you know, you had to go to college. You had to. And then it changed. It's like, well, it depends on what you studied. And the cost these days for most families is so prohibitive that you really have to have, and it's tough at 17, 18 to know, right? But you really have to have, that's how you look at the clock. You really, I'm not taking that long. You really have to have a clear idea, and not everybody's gonna. Not everybody's gonna. So I think that these things address that program. We should push it. We should push it real good, like the 90s rap group Salt and Pepper used to say.
Any further comments or questions? We can move on to public comments. Are there any public comments at this time?
There are no public comments at this time.
Thank you. We can now move on with your review of the agenda.
The first agenda item was informational. It was the learning loss district programs. I gave an overview of the after-school tutoring program as well as the summer academy programs for the 2022 summer. Both were informational items. The second item was the dual enrollment credit cap and staffing presentation. This will require board action during the May 10th board meeting.
Thank you so much. We have one item on the agenda that has board action on it, which needs us to review it on the May meeting. So if I can just ask if we're okay with moving that for the May meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll turn this meeting back over to President Brown.
Thank you very much, Director Williams. A motion is in order for the adjournment of the Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.